It was a rare, quiet morning in Los Angeles. Sun just rising, a light breeze over Venice Beach, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson found himself with something he hadn't had in weeks: a free hour. No filming, no meetings, no press. Just silence. For a man who thrived on motion and momentum, moments like this were gold. He didn't want to waste it, and more importantly, he didn't want it to be about anyone else. No paparazzi, no entourage, no fans crowding him for selfies. Just the iron, the grind, the kind of therapy only the gym could offer. But he wasn't heading to his usual luxury setup or some celebrity trainer's private facility. Instead, he drove to a no-frills, old-school gym tucked into a quiet industrial strip near Venice. The kind of place where the smell of rubber and rust hit you before the front desk. The kind of place that didn't care who you were, only what you lifted. He walked in quietly, hoodie up, headphones on, his massive frame still impossible to miss even when he tried to disappear. The regulars gave a few glances. Recognition rippled subtly, but no one said anything. This was the kind of gym where ego and flash weren't currency. Respect was earned with sweat, not status. But not everyone got the memo. Behind the front counter stood a lean, muscle-carved man in his mid-30s, arms crossed, jaw sharp, wearing a tank top that looked one size too small. His name was Jake, a full-time trainer, part-time influencer, and full-blown ego machine. Jake prided himself on being the top dog at the gym. His clients? Former athletes, wannabe models, and the occasional YouTube fitness bro. His favorite pastime? Cutting others down to feel taller. Jake noticed Dwayne the moment he walked in, and instead of admiration, what flickered across his face was irritation. Another big guy thinking he runs the place, he thought. But then his eyes locked onto Dwayne's face. That was The Rock. And rather than be humbled, Jake saw an opportunity. Clout. Maybe even a confrontation that would go viral. He smirked. Dwayne headed to the corner to warm up. Stretching. Focused. No cameras. Just a man and his routine. But Jake couldn't resist. He strutted over, arms swinging like a cartoon tough guy. "Yo," he said, voice loud enough for several lifters to turn. "You sure you know how to use this kind of gym? We don't do celebrity circuits here." Dwayne paused mid-stretch, looked up calmly. He removed one earbud. "Morning to you too." Jake smirked. "No offense, Hollywood. Just saying, this place is for serious lifters, not stunt doubles and movie props." Someone at the squat rack nearby snorted, not sure if it was funny or cringy. Dwayne didn't bite. "Appreciate the heads up," he said evenly, putting the bud back in and moving to the bench press. But Jake wasn't done. As Dwayne loaded a couple of 45s on each side, Jake hovered like a bad smell. "That your warm-up? Or is that the big finale?" Dwayne gave a small grin without looking at him. "Just getting started." Jake chuckled, loud and forced. "Just don't strain yourself. These plates don't come with special effects." A few eyes shifted. Whispers started. People were pretending not to watch, but they were watching. The gym had turned into a pressure cooker. Dwayne powered through his set effortlessly. Smooth. Controlled. He racked the bar, sat up, wiped his forehead, and gestured toward the bench. "You need it." Jake waved him off. "Nah, I don't usually share with actors who play strong." That one hit the room like a slap. You could feel the collective cringe, like the air got heavier. Dwayne stood, tall and calm, towering over Jake, but still no aggression. He simply grabbed a towel and walked toward the dumbbell rack. His presence was calm, but commanding. Years of fame, training, adversity, it taught him that the loudest guy in the room is usually the weakest. But Jake didn't get the message. He followed. "Don't get me wrong," Jake said, voice dipped in fake friendliness. "I grew up watching your movies. Love that scene where you pull a helicopter with your bare hands. Classic CGI." Dwayne, lifting a pair of 120-pound dumbbells, exhaled and set them down gently. He finally turned to face Jake. "You good, man?" Jake blinked. "Just trying to keep the vibe real in here, you know?" Dwayne looked around. Half the gym was frozen. Half the gym was pretending not to stare. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I can feel that vibe." Jake took that as encouragement and puffed up. "I'm just saying, people come here to work, not pose for Instagram." Now, anyone who knew Dwayne knew he could squash the guy with a stare. But instead of reacting, he asked, What is it exactly you're trying to prove? Jake laughed awkwardly. Nothing. I just think people like you get too much credit for looking strong. Not being strong. A silence fell. Dwayne smiled. Fair point. Jake was momentarily stunned. He expected a retort. Maybe a flex. Instead, Dwayne grabbed a loaded barbell and deadlifted it clean, back straight, breath control like it was second nature. He didn't grunt, didn't show off. Just lifted, then re-racked it. Calm. Centered. Jay tried to laugh again, but it sounded thinner now. Okay. You got some numbers. But let's see some real programming. You train with what? Actors? Trainers who hold your hand between takes. Dwayne gave a half shrug. Sometimes I train with SEALs. Sometimes with 4 a.m. demons. Depends on the day. The jab might have been subtle, but the effect was nuclear. Someone in the corner muttered, "Yo." Jake's face shifted. That wasn't the answer he wanted. You think that's impressive? Jake said, his voice tightening. Try one of my sessions. You won't last 10 minutes. Dwayne wiped his face with a towel, now more amused than anything. You think sweat proves something? Jake squared up. It proves you're not faking it. Dwayne's eyes hardened, but his tone didn't change. Let me ask you something. Do you train people to build them up or tear them down? That question wasn't for Jake anymore. It was for the whole gym. Jake hesitated. I push people to be their best. Good, Dwayne said. Then maybe start with your attitude. Boom. A mic drop moment without raising his voice, without getting angry. It hit harder than any insult could. Jake's smirk flickered, then vanished. His swagger broke like a cracked mirror. People exchanged glances. Some even smiled. Dwayne turned back to his workout, calm as ever. In the gym, it felt different now. The energy had shifted, not just because a star walked in, but because a man walked in, took the high road, and still owned the room. Jake faded into the background, suddenly less loud, less smug. And Dwayne? He just kept lifting. Dwayne continued his workout in silence, focusing on each rep with laser-like discipline. He was in the zone now, not because he was angry, not even because of Jake, but because he'd slipped into that rare headspace only forged through years of mental conditioning. That place where noise fades, distractions vanish, and only one thing matters: effort. Every curl, every press, every breath, intentional, controlled, meditative. But Jake wasn't done. The sting of Dwayne's calmly delivered question, "Do you train people to build them up or tear them down?" echoed in his head like a looping track. He tried to shake it off, told himself it was just a clever comeback. But something about it clung to his ego like a burr. Jake had spent years building his brand on dominance, on being the biggest presence in the room. And now he wasn't. Not today. Not with him there. Trying to regain control of the space. Jake moved to the center of the gym floor, where a group of his clients were doing sled pushes. Loudly, he began barking out commands. "Let's go. I want faster reps. No excuses. You're not acting in a movie. You're building real muscle." The line was a not-so-subtle jab in Dwayne's direction. A few clients gave each other side eyes. Even they were starting to feel secondhand embarrassment. One of the younger guys, a quiet kid named Evan who had been training with Jake for a couple months, muttered under his breath, "What's he trying to prove?" Still, Jake powered on, trying to force the energy back in his favor. He yelled louder, paced faster, clapped aggressively as his clients moved through the sets. But it felt artificial now, like a stage play no one wanted to see. Dwayne, meanwhile, kept to himself. No cameras, no boasting, just effort. Then it happened. One of the gym members, a middle-aged woman named Carla who trained alone most mornings, approached Dwayne while he was re-racking a set of heavy dumbbells. She spoke softly, but audibly enough to carry. "I just wanted to say," she began, hesitating for a beat, "thank you for how you handled that earlier." A lot of us have dealt with that attitude from Jake. Dwayne looked at her, genuinely surprised, then offered a warm smile. "I appreciate that. Just doing my thing." Carla smiled, then added, You didn't have to take the high road, but you did. That means something." She walked away, but her words landed. Not just with Dwayne, but with Jake, who had overheard the exchange from across the room. And suddenly, the cracks in his armor widened. For the first time that morning, Jake didn't feel like the center of attention. But what made it worse was what came next. Dwayne had finished his strength sets and transitioned into conditioning work, battling ropes, burpees, sled drags. Brutal, unrelenting. Anyone watching could see this wasn't some polished fitness montage. It was raw work, painful, real, the kind of workout that humbles even the toughest guys. And he was doing it solo, without a trainer barking at him, without music blasting or selfies taken between rounds. Jake, feeling the gym slipping away from his grip, walked over again. But this time, he tried a different approach, one dipped in sarcasm. Didn't know movie stars could sweat. Dwayne, panting between rope slams, looked up, face soaked, breathing heavy, but eyes locked in. Didn't know trainers needed an audience to feel strong. Boom. Second hit. No foul language. No yelling. Just a truth delivered with surgical precision. Jake's mouth opened, but no words came out. And then, like fate delivering poetic justice, one of Jake's clients, Evan, the quiet kid, walked over to Dwayne, clearly nervous but determined. Sir, sorry to interrupt. I was wondering if maybe you could show me how you do those sled pulls. I've been trying to get better at them, but yeah. Dwayne gave the kid a nod and that signature reassuring grin. Of course, man. Let's do it. Jake blinked. His own client. Defecting. Just like that. As Dwayne helped Evan adjust his form, gave him pointers on posture and breathing, a small crowd naturally formed. Not because it was The Rock, but because of the way he was teaching, patient, encouraging, sharp-eyed. A real coach. A leader. In 5 minutes, he said more to build someone up than Jake had in 5 months. Another client came over. Then another. And Jake stood frozen in place, arms limp at his sides. This wasn't supposed to happen. He was supposed to be the alpha, the expert, the guy who knew more, lifted more, commanded more. But in that moment, Dwayne wasn't just dominating the room physically. He was reshaping its energy. He didn't do it with bravado or intimidation. He did it with humility, authenticity, respect. And people noticed. A guy who'd been deadlifting in the corner, an ex-Marine named Wes, walked up to Jake and said flatly, "Maybe take notes today, man." Jake said nothing. He didn't even nod. Minutes passed. The gym buzzed not with tension anymore, but inspiration. Evan nailed his sled push. Carla smiled from the treadmill. Dwayne fist-bumped a teenage lifter who'd been mimicking his rope routine. And Jake, he walked quietly to the back office and closed the door behind him. Inside, his reflection in the dusty wall mirror stared back at him. And for the first time in years, he didn't like the guy he saw. Not because Dwayne made him look weak, but because Dwayne reminded him of something he'd forgotten, why he started training in the first place. Not for followers, not for dominance, but to help people, to be better, to make others better. And somewhere along the way, he'd lost that. Outside, Dwayne finished his last set. No grand speech. No look at me moment. Just a slow exhale, a wipe of the towel, and a nod to the people around him. Keep pushing, he said to no one in particular, but everyone heard it. He walked out of the gym like he walked in, low-key, humble, headphones in. But this time, something was different. He left behind more than sweat and silence. He left behind an example, a reminder. And for Jake, who remained alone in that office, surrounded by silence that was now deafening, it was a wake-up call. Not the kind that humiliates, but the kind that transforms. The next morning, the gym was unusually quiet. Not in terms of activity, weights still clanged, treadmills still hummed, people still moved through sets, but in tone. The usual buzz of ego, jokes, and forced hype had been replaced by a kind of thoughtful calm. People nodded to each other more. Spotters were quicker to help. Even the grunts and slams felt less aggressive. And Jake, he wasn't on the floor. No clapping, no shouting, no over-the-top motivation. He was in the office again, seated at his desk, staring at his computer screen, but not watching videos or editing workouts for Instagram. Instead, he was re-watching the security footage from the day before. No sound, just visuals. Frame after frame of Dwayne Johnson moving through his workout, unaffected by the noise, patient with strangers, lifting like a warrior and teaching like a mentor. Jake watched as Evan, his own client, approached Dwayne for guidance. He watched Carla's quiet thank you, watched the subtle shift in the room. The kind of shift that couldn't be orchestrated with volume or swagger. It was the ripple effect of humility, of substance over style. And Jake realized he hadn't just lost control of the gym yesterday. He lost something far more important: respect. But here's the thing. What hit hardest wasn't the shame. It was the realization that he wanted to be better. And that meant facing it. So, an hour later, Jake emerged from the office, not in his usual flashy tank top, but in a simple t-shirt and joggers. No pre-workout drink in hand. No pumped-up playlist in his ears. Just a quiet man walking back into the space he'd once ruled like a king. He started small, helping rack weights, offering a silent thumbs up to a lifter finishing a tough set, cleaning up a spill by the cable machines. No theatrics, no speeches. And then he approached Evan. "Hey," Jake said quietly. "About yesterday, I saw you getting help from Dwayne. That was a smart move." Evan looked startled, unsure whether it was sarcasm. Yeah, he was really helpful. Showed me a few tricks I didn't even know about." Jake nodded. "Good. I should have taught you that weeks ago." Evan blinked. "It's cool, man. I mean, he's The Rock. Anyone would want to learn from him." Jake smiled. Not the smug smirk, but something real. "Yeah, but I should have been the one you trusted to ask first. That's on me." Evan was quiet for a second, then gave a small nod. "It's cool. Thanks," Jake said. "And hey, if you're open to it, maybe we can go over sled mechanics together next week. Build on what he showed you." "Yeah," Evan said, a little surprised. "I'd like that." That was the beginning. Over the next few days, Jake started changing how he trained people. Less yelling, more listening, less proving, more teaching. He started asking his clients questions instead of giving commands. Started spotting for people who weren't his clients. Slowly, the culture shifted. And then, just when people thought Dwayne's visit had become a memory, the unexpected happened. On Friday, 5 days after the infamous encounter, Dwayne returned. Same hoodie, same headphones, same quiet presence. But this time, the air didn't stiffen with tension. It buzzed with anticipation. He nodded at a few familiar faces, gave Carla a smile, even fist-bumped Evan on the way in. Jake, who had seen him walk through the door, didn't retreat to the office this time. Instead, he took a deep breath, walked across the gym, and approached with humility etched across his face. "Hey," Jake said, not too loud. "Can I talk to you for a second?" Dwayne took off one earbud, gave him his full attention. "Sure." Jake looked him in the eye, steady but honest. "I was out of line the other day. Not just with you, but with a lot of people here. I let my pride do the talking." Dwayne didn't immediately respond. He let the silence hang, as if giving Jake room to say it all. "I guess I've been so busy trying to be the guy in charge, I forgot why I got into this in the first place," Jake continued. "Watching you, the way you treated people, even after I came at you sideways, it hit me. You didn't have to be gracious, but you were. And that taught me more than any lecture could." Dwayne finally nodded, voice low and steady. "Takes a lot to say that, man. Respect." Jake exhaled. "I just wanted to thank you, not just for how you handled me, but for what you showed everyone here, including myself." Dwayne gave a small smile. "You mind if I say something?" "Of course." Dwayne looked him in the eye. "You got a lot of fire. That's not a bad thing. Fire's what lights the way. But if it's not aimed right, it burns everything down." Jake nodded slowly, absorbing it. "You're not the only one who had to learn that the hard way," Dwayne added. "But what matters is what you do after." Those words weren't dramatic, but they carried weight. Not just because they came from The Rock, but because they came from someone who'd lived the journey, who had once been the angry young man in the room, who had to learn, grow, evolve. Jake offered a handshake. Dwayne took it. And that handshake, it wasn't just a truce. It was a passing of something more intangible. Respect earned through humility, not dominance. For the rest of the session, Dwayne trained like he always did, focused, intense, locked in. But the vibe was different. Jake spotted him on a heavy bench set. Dwayne gave Jake a nod before launching into a brutal conditioning circuit. Other lifters moved around with new energy, as if the place had absorbed the lessons of the week like sweat into the mat. When Dwayne finished, instead of heading straight out the door, he gathered a few folks near the pull-up bars, Evan, Carla, Wes, and a couple others, and shared some insight. "Everyone here is chasing something. he said. Stronger lifts, more confidence, better focus. Whatever it is, it starts with one thing: discipline. Not loudness, not ego, just showing up even when you don't feel like it. They listened, not like fans, but like teammates. And remember, no one in here is better than the next person. Doesn't matter if you've been lifting for 10 years or 10 days. Respect is the real weight we all gotta carry. That landed harder than a PR deadlift. As Dwayne left the gym, Jake watched from across the room, arms folded, not in defiance, but in appreciation. He had learned something this week that no certification, no influencer campaign, no viral video could have taught. Leadership isn't about being loud. It's about being steady when it counts. It's not about calling people out, but calling them up. In the weeks that followed, word about the incident spread, but not in the way Jake had once feared. No viral video mocking him. No humiliating Reddit threads. Instead, the story became a kind of legend in the local fitness community. A story people told not to shame Jake, but to celebrate how quickly he turned around. Even other trainers at nearby gyms noticed the shift. Jake was different now. Sharper, kinder, more respected than he'd ever been. And not because Dwayne Johnson humiliated him, but because Dwayne Johnson inspired him. Months later, the gym installed a new banner on the far wall. It wasn't flashy, just bold letters painted over an old brick section above the dumbbell racks. It read, "Strength isn't what you show, it's what you build. DJ." There was no picture, no promotional tag, just a quiet reminder of the day Dwayne Johnson got mocked by a rude gym trainer and left behind something stronger than muscle.